Hi, welcome to episode 23 of the second edition, second year of trying to squat into my 40s at least double body weight. I say at least, I happen to forget there. So over the last kind of couple of years I've been documenting various trials and tribulations of uh, how I can get stronger and other things that kind of throw up into the mix as I go. The last few weeks it's been positive really, quite consistent, knocking up some training sessions, hitting a routine, make sure that kind of the program is okay, and now developing into a velocity-based system where I've enhanced the Yes is 1x20 program. So 1x20 is 20 reps of a single exercise, obviously multiple exercises per training session, with the objective of trying to get more robust. So long-term strategy would be to sort of double body weight just before then. More specific forms of training that would be things like heavy doubles, heavy singles, heavy triples. But in previous years when I've tried that, I've broken down quite quickly, suffered a lot of soft tissue injuries, and just couldn't sustain that type of training. So I've kind of gone back to some fundamental basics and tried to develop some more robustness. The 3 sets of 10, the Dylan Watkins worked okay when I first started to it, but then I still started to break down. So this is where I've kind of settled onto now. And it has, so far, been working really well. But I'm going to talk a little bit about today, going into some data, and just start to explore or explain a little bit more about how strength adaptations aren't quite as easy to predict, and other things influence that the time course of strength adaptations and what other people might consider a plateau. So if I just bring up some data here. So what I've been doing is recording the average velocity of my squats since I've started this particular program. And what we can see there is now there's quite a lot of data points on there now. So I'm not going to try and explain all of them. I'm going to break it down to effectively what's been happening since roughly the Christmas period, when I've been considerably more consistent. So that's where we are since, probably going back to about July, with a couple of breaks in there, and then on the right hand side, all these consistent data points here are effectively from Christmas onwards. If I just kind of take it into that only, so we can strip out all the ones that came before then. So I kind of started off at 70 kilos and been moving up since then. So what I then, after I got to 70 kilos onto 75, then I decided to think about things a bit more systematically and be a bit more confident that I had some adaptation that meant I had gotten stronger, rather than just putting weight on and grinding my way through 20 reps, making sure I'd adapted to that weight before I moved on. And again, I think that's working well for me, I think, at the minute. I'll try to explain what it is that's happening at the minute. So in the first kind of 3 blocks, you can see on the left hand side, this was the first one at 70. I decided on this particular approach. When I got to 75, I said, right, the line in the sand is going to be at 0.66 meters per second. That's the set average. And it took me four squat sessions to get to that point. And then I went up to 80 kilograms, and again, a similar process. The first one was quite good, and a lower session, a similar session again to the first one, and then by the fourth one, I breached that 0.66 threshold. So I thought I would expect to see a relatively similar pattern, adapted to the previous load, was moving faster. As you can see by this kind of the error bars here represent the slowest and the fastest rep of that particular set. I mean, I cut off unfortunately the metrics, but this upper band here was around about the 0.8 meters per second mark. So fast repetitions really for a squat. When I went up a load, the velocity dropped quite dramatically, down to low 0.5s. That was below what I had been working with, so I wasn't anticipating a drop-off, and as a consequence of that, it's going to take me longer to achieve that 0.6 threshold mark. So you can see from this red box is where the phase of training I'm in at the moment, it's taken a bit longer. So I'm currently up to, I think, 1, 2, 3, 6, 8 sessions so far, whereas that's double the amount of squat sessions I'd previously taken with the last 2 increments. So that would to some people see like a plateau. Usually kind of go up every four sessions. This is now doubled, that would be a plateau. But I started to look at the data within the data. So if you can see by the left-hand side, I mean, the lowest repetitions were down below 0.4 meters per second, and the fastest ones were only just above 0.6 meters per second. Well, if I just take the last session I did over here, which is the very far right-hand side, the average velocity was 0.62 meters per second, which is a whole 0.1 meters per second faster. That's quite a big jump in velocity, especially for 20 repetitions. But the gap between the fastest and the slowest repetition is dramatically smaller. That means I'm not fatiguing anywhere near as much. I can tolerate 20 repetitions of that weight much better. On this particular day, I just didn't hit any reps of 0.7 meters per second. So it might well be that from a neurological point of view, I just wasn't on great form that particular day. Well, that's even more pleasing for me that on a not great neurological day, I'm not really feeling like I'm popping and I've got those really explosive muscle fibers that I'd hoped for. I can still average better than my previous session. I'm not degrading the velocity anywhere near as much. So the difference between the lowest and the highest might have been higher if I was better, because the upper limit might have been higher as well. That gives me confidence that I'm not necessarily on a plateau as such. I'm just taking a longer time to get the strength gained from this particular load. But the previous kind of interpretation I had on the Essex 1x20 would have been I'd have moved up 5 sessions ago. But as I've demonstrated here, I haven't illustrated I've increased in strength. Not yet. Not to a threshold level, not to where I've adapted to the point where I was at the previous load. So that might mean I would have gone up a weight and gone up a weight again, and actually just kind of been burying myself more, creating more fatigue, push myself beyond my kind of sustainable capacity. So it's really helping me have this data to be more patient about incremental loads and going, I can use data to demonstrate increasing fitness, increasing in terms of sustaining velocity throughout a set, not just kind of the peak velocity, and showing that actually that's changing across those 8 sets I've done so far. I can see what has changed. Yes, I'm not at that threshold mark of 0.66 meters per second yet, but I can see it's heading there. And it may well be that the next time I do a session, which is tomorrow, it would be that, yeah, push through that limit, push through that ceiling, and I can move on to 90 from next week. That'd be great. It might take another session, but as long as that incremental progress is there, that's okay. One thing I mentioned way back when is I love the sport of weightlifting. I'd like to be back in the Masters weightlifting circuit again this year, and that's something I'm aspiring to do, and I think that's quite complementary to the squat program. Or at least I thought it was. Because as you can see there from what I've been doing, I've demonstrated evidence that I have gotten stronger. I'm moving a weight progressively faster. Yes, not at the threshold I've set for myself, but I'm moving it faster than I was 5-6 weeks ago. The velocity I've got now at 85 kilos is greater than the velocity it was 6 weeks ago at 70 kilos. 15 kilos more, still moving the same velocity. That's clearly gotten stronger. And more powerful. Same load, same velocity, higher load equals more power. What isn't showing up though is the change in weightlifting performance. So at the beginning of each session I do either 3 snatches or 3 cleans, both with the same load every single time. So it's either 3 50 kilo snatches or 3 70 kilo cleans. So that's because I know it's a load I can do. It's within my technical capacity. It's something I can do straight after a regular kind of ramp warm up. I don't have to kind of sign myself up for it. It's just a decent kind of number, and it keeps my hand in the weightlifting gear basically. But what you can see from this particular chart, which is measuring kind of relative peak power from all those lifts, from all those different sessions, it's effectively getting worse, especially the cleans. Well, traditional knowledge would suggest that the stronger you get in the squats, the better you get in the cleans and the snatches, and you perform better. And I'm actually showing that, although I'm not devoting a lot of time to clean and jerk and snatches, I would still expect to maintain, if not get better. The stronger I am, the more leg force I can produce, the more I should be able to apply that to the clean and jerk and snatch. And actually, what's happening at the minute is show signs are getting worse. So that's nice. That's disappointing. But maybe when I can devote more specific preparation time to those particular lifts, they'll go back up again. But it may be a marker of fatigue. It may be a marker of actually I'm focusing the wrong end of the force velocity spectrum. I'm becoming stronger through force expression, but actually getting progressively worse at moving at higher and higher velocities. Although, having said that, I am trying to squat at the highest velocity possible. So the intention is to move with higher and higher velocity. So, yeah, see how that one pans out. But yeah, that's kind of me defying yet again conventional scientific wisdom that the stronger you get, the better you get at the Olympic lifts, and that's not happening. That's episode 23, and I'll see you next week for episode 24.